The briefing room on the 4th floor of the Pentagon holds 17 people on a Tuesday morning. Clearance level: top secret/sensitive compartmented information. Subject: operational parameters for a classified military campaign against Iranian nuclear and missile infrastructure. Code name: Epic Fury. The people in that room are among the most trusted in the United States government. One of them is working for Iran. The meeting ends at 11:47 a.m. By 3 p.m., a summary of the key operational timelines, strike windows, asset positioning, allied coordination schedules, has been encrypted and transmitted through a layered communications chain that terminates at an IRGC, intelligence handler operating out of Vienna. Iran knows what's coming. Iran knows the timeline, and someone inside the Pentagon made sure of it. The investigation was not triggered by a tip. It was not triggered by an informant. It was not triggered by anything dramatic. It was triggered by a number that didn't add up. Analysts at the FBI's Counterintelligence Division routinely monitor anomalous data patterns across classified government communication systems, a process that generates thousands of low-priority flags per month, most of which resolve into routine explanations within 48 hours. The vast majority are human error, misrouted files, expired clearances accessing legacy systems, bureaucratic overlap between agencies with duplicate data structures. On a Thursday morning, one flag did not resolve. A senior defense intelligence analyst assigned to the Joint Chiefs of Staff support structure with top secret/ECI access across multiple compartmented programs had access to classified database at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. The access itself was not prohibited. The analyst had legitimate authorization for the relevant compartment. What was anomalous was the pattern around the access. The 2:17 a.m. login was the 8th after-hours access event in 60 days, all between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m., all from the same government-issued device, all involving the same narrow cluster of SCI compartmented files that pertain to one specific operational program, Epic Fury. The FBI opened a preliminary inquiry. Expected outcome: security protocol violation, unauthorized personal use of classified systems, possible disciplinary action. Within 72 hours, the preliminary inquiry became a full counterintelligence investigation designated Priority 1. Digital forensics, authorized under a federal counterintelligence warrant, revealed that the after-hours access events were not random. Each one preceded a specific type of external communication event by 12 to 36 hours. The analyst's personal devices, a cell phone and a personal laptop, neither of which should have contained any classified material, showed encrypted outbound transmissions on a platform not associated with any known U.S. government communication system. The platform was a commercially available end-to-end encrypted messaging application, modified with a secondary encryption layer that forensic analysts had not encountered before in domestic counterintelligence cases. The secondary layer was consistent with IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, communication security protocols documented in classified intelligence assessments from the previous 4 years. The FBI brought in NSA technical assistance on day 4. NSA, analysts confirmed. The secondary encryption architecture was not publicly available. It had been developed by Iranian state intelligence assets and distributed selectively to human intelligence sources operating in Western countries. The presence of this specific protocol on a domestic U.S. doing device meant one thing with near certainty: this person was not a curiosity-driven internal threat. This person was a recruited, trained, actively managed Iranian intelligence asset. The investigation was placed under the most restrictive compartmentalization protocols available to the FBI's Counterintelligence Division. 7 people now knew its full scope. One of them briefed the director personally. 14 years of federal service, 3 agency assignments, 2 overseas postings and advisory roles. Performance evaluations described consistently as excellent. No financial irregularities in any prior background investigation. No foreign contacts of concern documented. No red flags in any of the 5 security reinvestigations conducted over the course of the career. Clean record, exemplary service. Trusted by everyone who had ever worked alongside, the FBI did not announce the investigation, did not contact the analyst's supervisors, did not alter the analyst's access in any way that would signal awareness. Instead, they watched, controlled surveillance, authorized under a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court order, covered the analyst's communications, movements, and access behavior in real time. A technical team was embedded within the government network infrastructure to monitor every keystroke made on the government-issued device in real time, without triggering any internal security alert that could be observed by the analyst or by anyone in the analyst's professional environment. The surveillance was passive, invisible, total. What it revealed over the following 18 days built a case that FBI counterintelligence veterans would later describe as one of the most precisely documented espionage operations they had encountered in domestic investigations. The analyst was not acting alone. The communication chain traced through the modified encrypted platform did not lead to a single Iranian handler. It led to a network. The Vienna-based IRGC handler was a node, not a terminus. The handler coordinated collection from multiple sources simultaneously, aggregating intelligence from different access points within the U.S. defense and intelligence establishment, and packaging it for transmission to IRGC Quds Force Intelligence Directorate in Tehran. FBI counterintelligence analysts, working with CIA and NSA counterparts under a joint task force established on day 12 of the investigation, spent 9 days reconstructing the full network architecture. What they found: the Pentagon analyst was the highest access source in the network, but not the only one. A second individual, a contract employee supporting a defense logistics firm with Pentagon access credentials, had been providing supply chain and deployment timeline information through a separate communication channel that fed into the same Vienna handler. A third individual, a former State Department employee, now working as a consultant, who retained limited advisory access to certain unclassified but operationally sensitive policy documents, had been feeding contextual diplomatic intelligence that allowed Iranian analysts to interpret the operational intelligence provided by the other 2 sources. 3 sources, 3 different access levels, 3 different institutional positions, coordinated by 1 handler, feeding 1 intelligence directorate, all 3 providing information that, in combination, gave Iran a comprehensive operational picture of epic fury. Not just fragments, but layered intelligence covering military timelines, diplomatic constraints, allied coordination, and logistical positioning. Iran was not reading individual reports. Iran was reading the operation. The task force designated the network Tangled Crown. The investigation entered its most critical phase. This is the part that made the task force understand. The urgency was not theoretical. Epic fury was not a future plan. It was an active operation in staged execution. Assets had been positioned, allied governments had been coordinated, Strike windows had been calculated based on Iranian air defense posture and regional operational conditions. The operation was in the final weeks of a preparation phase that had taken 19 months to develop. Based on the intelligence transmitted through the tangled Crown network, Iranian analysts had, with high confidence, the following information: the approximate time frame of the primary strike window, not the exact date, but a range narrow enough to allow Iran to take specific countermeasures, relocating high-value assets, alerting air defense systems, repositioning mobile missile platforms, warning Allied proxy forces in the region to expect retaliatory authorization. The identity of at least 2 Allied governments participating in the operational framework. Information that, if revealed, could force those governments to withdraw from participation under domestic political pressure, degrading the operation's coalition architecture. The existence of a classified human intelligence source embedded within Iranian nuclear program infrastructure. The source that had provided the targeting data on which the entire Epic Fury framework was built. Iran had not yet identified this person by name, but they had enough to narrow the search to a small pool of individuals. The source's life expectancy, if that search continued, was measured in weeks. The task force briefed the National Security Council on a Thursday evening. The next morning, Epic Fury's execution timeline was suspended pending counterintelligence resolution. The operation was frozen. The intelligence source inside Iran was placed on emergency exfiltration protocol. The FBI had to move fast. Here is what made the arrest phase operationally complex in a way that a standard criminal investigation never is. All 3 members of the Tangled Crown network held some form of active security clearance or access credential. Arresting any one of them without simultaneously arresting the others created an immediate risk. The moment one arrest was made, the Vienna handler would know the network had been compromised. The handler would sever contact with the remaining sources. The sources would destroy evidence. The handler himself, operating in Austria outside U.S. jurisdiction, would disappear. Simultaneous arrests, all 3, across 3 different institutional environments, on the same day, at the same time. That requirement created a secondary problem. The Pentagon analyst still had active system access. On the morning of the planned arrest, the analyst was scheduled to attend a classified briefing. A briefing that, if attended, would have provided updated Epic Fury operational status information that the analyst had not yet transmitted. Allowing the briefing to proceed risked a final intelligence transmission that could have reached Iran before the arrest was executed. Excluding the analyst from the briefing through any mechanism that required coordination with supervisors risked alerting the analyst that something had changed. The task force had to find a way to prevent the analyst from attending a classified briefing without letting the analyst know they were being prevented. The solution required a coordinated deception operation within a federal building, executed by FBI and military counterintelligence personnel in roles that could not be identified as law enforcement. It worked. The analyst was redirected to a non-scheduled administrative requirement at 8:30 a.m. A routine appearing request for a security documentation update staged in a conference room on a different floor. The request appeared entirely normal. It came through an official channel. It gave no indication of what was actually happening. At 8:45 a.m., while the analyst sat in a conference room filling out paperwork, the classified briefing proceeded without the analyst present. At 9:14 a.m., arrest teams moved simultaneously on all 3 targets. 3 locations, 3 arrest teams, 1 coordinated signal. The Pentagon analyst, taken into custody in the conference room where the administrative redirect had been staged. No resistance. Visibly surprised, the expression of someone who had calculated the risk and concluded incorrectly that the operation was still invisible. The logistics contractor, arrested at a government facility parking structure as the contractor arrived for the workday. A second team entered the contractor's office simultaneously to secure electronic devices before any remote wipe command could be transmitted. The former State Department consultant, arrested at a private residence in Northern Virginia. This arrest was the most legally complex. The consultant's current role was private sector, and the evidence chain connecting the consultant to the network required careful documentation to meet the legal threshold for charges involving intelligence activity rather than simple, unauthorized disclosure. All three in custody within 11 minutes of the coordinated signal. In Vienna, the FBI's legal attaché office, coordinating with Austrian Federal Intelligence, moved simultaneously to identify and surveil the IRGC handler. The handler could not be arrested under U.S. jurisdiction, but the handler's communication infrastructure was disrupted. The handler's cover identity was blown to Austrian authorities, and intelligence collected from the disruption was shared with Allied services for ongoing monitoring. The handler disappeared from Vienna within 48 hours. The network was severed. The human intelligence source inside Iran's nuclear program infrastructure had been the foundation of the Epic Fury targeting framework. Without that source, the intelligence basis for the operation's strike package would have been partially degraded. More immediately, without exfiltration, the source would likely be dead within weeks. The exfiltration was executed under a separate classified protocol that the FBI task force was not fully read into. That operation belongs to another agency, another compartment, and another story. What the task force was told. The source was successfully extracted from Iranian territory before the Tangled Crown arrests were made public. The source was out before the Iranians could act on the narrowed pool identification that the leaked intelligence had enabled. By 12 hours. 12 hours between the source leaving Iranian territory and the moment Iran's intelligence services understood their network had been rolled up. 12 hours that represented the difference between a successful exfiltration and a death that would never have been publicly acknowledged. The source is alive. The intelligence transmitted through the Tangled Crown network had not been purely defensive. This was not Iran trying to understand Epic Fury in order to protect its assets. That was part of it. But the full picture that emerged from communications recovered during the investigation revealed that Iran had been constructing an active response plan. A set of coordinated actions designed not merely to blunt Epic Fury, but to turn the intelligence advantage into an offensive operation. The response plan, as reconstructed by task force analysts, involved preemptive activation of proxy forces in 3 regional theaters: Iraq, Syria, and Yemen, timed to coincide with the Epic Fury strike window. The goal: create simultaneous crises in multiple locations that would force U.S. military command to divide attention and assets at the moment of peak operational commitment. A targeted influence operation against one of the 2 allied governments whose participation in Epic Fury had been identified, using the leaked intelligence to construct a leak to that government's domestic press designed to make the government's leadership appear to have been secretly drawn into an American military operation without parliamentary or public knowledge. The goal: political crisis sufficient to force the Allied government to withdraw from the coalition. A direct counterintelligence operation against the identified intelligence source, an active search and neutralize effort that, based on the narrowed pool data Iran had obtained, had reached a 60 to 70% confidence level on the source's identity at the time the network was disrupted. None of these plans were executed. because the network was disrupted before Iran could act on any of them. But the task force understood what they had been looking at. This was not passive espionage. This was the groundwork for a strategic operation designed to cripple Epic Fury from the inside, using American personnel against American interests from within American institutions. The people in that briefing room on the 4th floor of the Pentagon, one of them was working for Iran. And if the investigation had started 2 weeks later, the source would have been dead, the coalition would have fractured, and Epic Fury would have collapsed before the first asset moved. Federal indictments were filed against all 3 Tangled Crown Network members within 30 days of the arrests. Charges included conspiracy to commit espionage against the United States under 18 U.S.C. Paragraph 794, gathering and transmitting national defense information under 18 U.S.C. Paragraph 793, acting as an agent of a foreign government without notification under 18 U.S.C. Paragraph 950 conspiracy to obstruct a lawful function of the United States government. The Pentagon analyst faced the most serious charge exposure. The espionage count under Section 794, which carries a maximum sentence of life imprisonment, and, in cases involving risk of death to a USO source, can be charged as a capital offense. The logistics contractor faced the same espionage charges at a lower severity level, reflecting the access level and the nature of the intelligence transmitted. The former State Department consultant faced charges under Section 951, foreign agent, and Section 793, with sentencing exposure of up to 30 years. All 3 were remanded without bail pending trial. The bail arguments from defense counsel that these were longtime federal employees with deep community ties and no prior criminal history were denied on the grounds that the charged offenses involved demonstrated capacity and willingness to act against U.S. national security interests in ways that no monitoring condition could adequately address. The Vienna handler was indicted in absentia on charges that will stand if the handler ever enters a jurisdiction with a U.S. extradition treaty. That has not happened yet. The Tangled Crown investigation produced a finding that was, in some ways, more alarming than the individual acts of the 3 defendants. The network had been operational for at least 4 years before detection. 4 years during which 3 individuals with different institutional footprints, different agencies, different clearance categories, and different supervisory chains had been providing coordinated intelligence to a foreign adversary. And none of the existing counterintelligence mechanisms had flagged it. Not because the mechanisms didn't exist, because the network had been structured specifically to avoid them. Each source maintained clean behavioral profiles, no lifestyle changes inconsistent with documented income, no foreign travel to hostile nation destinations, no known contact with identified foreign intelligence personnel, no financial anomalies detectable through standard security review processes. The Iranian intelligence service had done what sophisticated state intelligence services do. They had recruited people who could survive scrutiny, taught them operational security, and built a collection architecture that distributed the intelligence signature across multiple individuals so that no single person's behavior would cross any single detection threshold. The FBI found them not because the system caught them. The FBI found them because a number didn't add up. A 2:17 a.m. login. 8 times in 60 days. Same file cluster, same operational program. One anomaly. One analyst who decided to look closer rather than flag it as routine and move on. That decision to spend 48 hours running down one low-priority anomaly instead of closing it is the only reason the Tangled Crown network was found when it was found. The counterintelligence community will be studying this case for years, not because of what went wrong, but because of how close everything came to going catastrophically right for the other side. Epic Fury returned to an active planning status 6 weeks after the arrests. The coalition architecture was rebuilt. The two allied governments whose participation had been compromised were re-engaged through a revised coordination framework that limited the number of personnel raid into the full operational scope. The operation proceeded. What happened next is classified. The 3 defendants await trial. Legal proceedings in espionage cases of this sensitivity are typically delayed significantly by classification review processes, evidence handling requirements, and the need to protect sources and methods that cannot be disclosed in open court. The Pentagon analyst made no statement at arraignment. No public comment has been attributed to any of the 3 defendants since arrest. There are no dramatic confessions in counterintelligence cases. No speeches. No explanations that make it make sense. Someone trusted with the nation's most sensitive secrets decided to sell those secrets to a foreign adversary. The reasons, money, ideology, coercion, grievance, will emerge at trial or not at all. What will not emerge at trial is the name of the human intelligence source who was extracted from Iranian territory 12 hours before the arrests became public knowledge. That person's life has been rebuilt somewhere under a new identity with the permanent knowledge that they are alive today because an FBI analyst looked twice at a 2:17 a.m. login. Sometimes that's what intelligence work is. Not the raid, not the dramatic intervention. A number that didn't add up, and someone who decided it was worth looking at. 4 years. Estimated duration of the Tangled Crown Network's operation before detection. 3. Members of the network arrested across 3 institutional environments simultaneously. 1. The Vienna-based IRGC handler, indicted in absentia, location currently unknown. 14. Years of federal service accumulated by the primary Pentagon source before the betrayal was discovered. 12. Hours between the human intelligence source's extraction from Iran and the moment Tehran understood the network had been compromised. 2. Allied governments whose participation in Epic Fury had been identified through leaked intelligence. 60. Approximate days of controlled surveillance conducted before arrests were executed. 11. Minutes from coordinated arrest signal to all 3 defendants in custody. 1. Low-priority anomaly flag. A 2:17 a.m. login that started everything. 1 number. 1 analyst who looked at it closely. Everything else followed from that. That is what counterintelligence work actually looks like. Not the arrest. Not the headline. Not the coordinated takedown across 3 locations in 11 minutes. It starts with a number that doesn't add up, and someone who decides it's worth one more look.